I heard that first tropical storm was going to be a hurricane. I got everything just I told Kristen, you need a little left. Yeah. And then, you know, there was a little bit back and forth, and then I saw Kristen, and it's Erin, E-R-I-N. So tomorrow morning, I'm gonna send it to him and tell him I screwed up. No, I think it's. No.
Yeah, sure, please. I need more leg room anyway.
Thanks for the offer.
But I didn't remember anything, otherwise I would have actually introduced him. I never remember anybody's name. I can remember playing games, but everybody and the last one. Is it a passion? Exactly. I've told Dave that. If you need if I don't know, I'll find out.
It doesn't feel like that sometimes.
Oh, Michael's exactly the same. And, well, I know. He's got all these burn marks on top of his head. Okay, you know, he does too. He did wear a hat. Well, being a mailman, he was a mailman. And so, they do. Right. And so like, most of the hats were done. And the arm, that's not a mailman. Right arm. And then they got raw meat on the side arm.
So you know what I support.
Yeah, come back with us.
One.
All right, folks, we're going to start our meeting now.
Can I just take the charger in here? And then I'll give it back to you.
We're going to get started.
You have a sip of that orange juice.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Doring,
Here.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Here.
Councilmember Burke is absent, Spataroto,
Here.
and Summers.
Present.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. On to item 4, adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to note, or Mr. Carmelo, or additions?
No, Mr. Mayor, no changes.
All right, I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Second motion.
Motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That motion passes unanimously. On to approval of our minutes. These are minutes from our regular city council meeting of July 22nd, 2025. Madam Clerk, are there any corrections or amendments to be noted?
There are none.
Then I will, and any from my colleagues. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes from July 22nd.
I'll make the motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve our minutes from July 22nd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That motion passes unanimously. On to item 6, public forum. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public forum. Each person's comment shall be limited to 4 minutes. Each person is entitled to speak on any non-agendized item only once at any meeting. Brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas. But in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless and until the matter properly appears on the agenda. Anyone from the public wishing to have your say tonight with your city council? Mr. Belt. And then, of course, you. I saw you. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Belt, you got there before somebody else. Good evening. Nice to see you.
As City Council is aware, on July 22nd, after waiting 4.5 months, I finally received a 10-page response summarizing the attorney's findings from my February 5th email to Councilman Barrack, in which I provided several examples where, in my opinion, our city is out of compliance with Proposition 218. It is important to note that in my February 5th email, I asked Councilman Barrack to have the city's water and wastewater enterprises audited by an unbiased forensic accountant. I was surprised when I learned Councilman Barrack gave my email to the city attorney rather than requesting the financial audit. I say that because, you know, the city attorney's job is to advise on issues in the city's best interest. And I was surprised that he would give it to the city attorney, but nevertheless he did. Since receiving the summary of the city attorney's findings, I have found what I believe are errors, omissions, and mischaracterizations of the examples I provided to Councilman Barrack in my February 5th email. One of the difficulties I'm facing is, where do I go from here? There is a side of me that is reluctant to go forward with following up with the city attorney's findings, because when I sent the city manager an email thanking him for sending me the attorney's conclusions, he responded by writing, "Mr. Belt, your public records request had nothing to do with the sharing of the city attorney's memo. For the record, city staff have been making these assertions for several years to no avail, and it is unfortunate that it required the expending of city dollars to produce this report. Further, there is nothing in this memo that is confidential, and since it is a record that was specifically created for you, it is appropriate that the complete memo be shared with you. First of all, I did not send a public records request for this information. I sent my email to Councilman Barrack, requesting an audit be conducted. Secondly, what are the assertions in the city manager referring to in his response? Thirdly, did I receive the complete memo from the city attorney, as the city manager stated, because I was originally informed by the city attorney that his reply to the city would eventually be confidential, and what I received would be a condensed version of the findings. Due to the fact that I only have 4 minutes to speak this evening, I do not have the time to list or explain what I believe to be the errors in the attorney's findings. Nevertheless, this experience has left me contemplating the best course of action, weighing both the efficacy and the potential consequences of further engagement. Let's see, where did I leave off? I'm sorry. Navigating municipal processes can be difficult, and the tension between transparency and bureaucracy grows more apparent with each exchange. Despite my concerns, I remain committed to the principles behind Proposition 218 and believe that a thorough, impartial audit is not only warranted, but necessary for restoring faith in the city's financial practices. As I consider my next steps, I am mindful of the importance of civil discourse and constructive collaboration. I hope to encourage a more open dialogue among city officials and residents, one in which concerns about compliance are met with diligence rather than defensiveness. Ultimately, my goal is to foster accountability and ensure that public funds are managed in accordance with both the letter and the spirit of the law. And tonight, for the second time, I would like to have this matter agendized. I made this motion, or I made this request about a month ago, and I was ignored. And so I would like to do it again. And that's my request, because I believe that it's only through an agenda where we can have time to speak and give our both sides of our story that we can come to a conclusion on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Melton. Others wishing to address your city council tonight?
Oh, mine's not very important.
Mr. Mann, welcome.
Hi, nice to see you all. I have just a couple of things I wanted to perhaps get on a future agenda. One is I'd like the council to revisit the tree ordinance for both fire safety, for one reason. And the other thing is, it's hard for me to say this about a tree, but redwood trees do not belong in people's backyards, and yet there they are. And 100 feet, 120 feet high, and if their branches are overhanging your property or your building, is it the owner of the person who's being infringed upon's responsibility to deal with that? It's incredibly expensive to get an arborist who can, climb and deal with those branches. And the bigger issue really is the ones that are hanging over people's buildings, because that is a fire issue and people can get their insurance canceled as a result of that. The other part of that whole story is that they are impacting people's solar installations on their roofs. So I would really like some attention paid to our existing tree ordinance and seeing what we can do to kind of take these other things into account. The other one is I would like the city council to revisit the noise ordinance, because as near as I can tell right now, it's like it's all okay, as loud as you want it, until 10 o'clock at night. Well, that doesn't work for everybody. Yountville has a more robust noise ordinance, and it seems to work very well for them. So I would like to encourage you all to take a look at that and see what we can do to enhance the enjoyment of everybody for their property without having to deal with, neighbors, with amplified music all afternoon or all day. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Others wishing to address your council tonight? Finally.
Oh, that's
I saw you try to make a leap to the podium twice now. So
No.
Welcome.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. This is my first time speaking in this forum, so please go easy.
No worries.
on
We're
me.
easy, yeah.
My name is Dave Erickson. I proudly serve on the board of directors for Community Action Napa Valley, or CANV. People familiar with that in this room? mostly familiar with. We run the food bank that serves the county and over 9 pantries throughout Napa Valley in all of the communities for the last 60 plus years. I'm here on a new initiative for our board members to come out to the communities quarterly just to share some updates and be available if there's any questions or connections that we can make to the communities at large. And also share how we have been serving the community. So just in the last month of July, to Napa Valley, the food bank has serviced over 230,000 pounds of food distributed throughout Napa County. Specifically to the St. Helena community, we've done that through 33 individuals receive Meals on Wheels deliveries for our seniors, for our vulnerable seniors. And that's a part of a larger 450 individuals throughout Napa County. In St. Helena, in the month of July, we have served 737 individuals through the free markets that we supply, as well as 667, that's a lot, individuals served through emergency food pantry. Now, this is the food going directly to the most vulnerable and the most in need of food assistance in your community here in St. Helena. Just as a reminder, this is an organization established on government funding back in the 60s. And however, the need within the valley has grown exponentially throughout the decades and really can only survive based on the support of the community around it. So one little fun fact for those of us, especially going into the later part of the year where we do a lot of food drives and such, one fun fact that I always like to share is that if I'm donating food to a food drive and I spend $10 or $20 at the grocery store, if I was to donate that $10 to the food bank directly, through their collaborations and partnerships, and they can leverage the purchasing power of $10 and turn that into $40 or $100 worth of food purchased. So I always encourage cash donations is always great, right? So I appreciate your time and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and maybe we'll see you again in a month or two for a similar update.
Excellent idea to come to our city council. Thank you for that. I have served on your organization for several years, back in another decade.
That's fantastic.
So
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
I know the good work you do, and at some point I would like to sit down and talk with you about the documentation that is obtained from recipients, or needs to be retained from recipients of food bank. That's a topic that has come up in my constituency interactions. So maybe I can meet with you and your board or your leadership.
Yeah, I'd be happy to facilitate that connection. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Anyone else? All right. It doesn't look like anyone else is wanting to approach the podium at this point. So we will, I see you reaching for the mic, Mr. Camelo. Is there something that you wanted to say?
No, Mr. Mayor. I was waiting for the next item.
Oh, wow.
My apologies.
All right. Okay. All right. So we'll close the public comment and we'll move on to reports by staff and city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. Before I turn to you, Mr. Camelo, I'll turn to our city attorney, Mr. Walsh, to report out on our last couple of closed session items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so we did have a closed session on August 29th during a special meeting. That was a closed session for...
July 29th?
Excuse me. Right, I miswrote it down. July 29th. So that was a performance evaluation for the city manager. There was no reportable action from that item. And this evening, prior to this meeting, we also had a closed session where we had 2 items on the agenda. The first was labor negotiations with each of our bargaining units and our unrepresented employees. And the second was real property, conference with real property negotiators regarding 1480 Main Street and 1572 Railroad Avenue. And there was no reportable action from either one of those items also. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Mello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. I'll have Assistant City Manager Joe Leach report on a CIP and provide a CIP update. But before that, I want to make a couple of announcements. One is on August 19th, there'll be the joint City Council and Planning Commission meeting focused on housing. So I invite
everyone to attend the meeting here. And then secondly, as a departure of our former Park and Rec Director, I've appointed Deputy Director of Community Services, Mira Strickler, as the acting director and for the next 2 months, and then starting in October and November, manager of the Park and Rec Department, Ashley Sylvester, will be serving as the acting director.
Excellent. All right. Mr. Leach, CIP.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. I just want to really give you a high-level update of CIP projects. I know in October, we will give you kind of a more detailed summary of a quarterly update of what's happening with capital improvement program projects, but wanted to kind of highlight a few things that happened. And if you who have driven recently on South Crane, please be aware of your speed. It now can easily be a racetrack because the paving there is mostly done. There's a few spots where we're doing some culvert work, but pretty excited about how that project has turned out. We'll be pointing our attention to streets such as Mariposa, Adams, Dowdell, and Madrona, where they'll be doing some pavement dig-out work in preparation for slurry seal. The sewer award project, which is happening tonight, actually happens to be the same contractor that's working on that, so they're excited about transitioning from paving to underground. So that'll be moving forward. Oak Avenue project is in design, continuing through that process, working with an owner on a storm drain agreement for an outfall into Sulphur Creek. The Crenella Pump Station is still moving forward, working with some adjacent property owners about where an access door is going to be installed, so it doesn't impact their use of the park. Courtyard paving is pending, working through the Bell Canyon Tower intake project design and environmental surveys. Napa Intertine Pipeline project is in design, working with the consultant who's waiting on some potholing for that project. Tank 2 Rehab is finalizing their design, still expect to go out to bid this fall. And the water treatment plant pipeline rehab, we've developed an RFP for that, so we're reviewing that, and we'll be bringing that to you for consultant services authorization in the not too distant future. And with that, I'll field any questions you might have on those.
So just a clarifying question on the Crenella Pump Station.
Yes.
That is in construction now, or is
Correct.
it not? How far along? I mean, I know there's some issues that have to be worked out, but roughly how far along is
It's
that?
probably 75% complete.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Certainly.
Excellent work. Mr. Camelo, others needing or wishing to report tonight from your staff? All right. Thank you, Mr. Camelo. Back on. Okay, we're going to go back onto our agenda. Item 8, presentations and public recognitions. 8.1 is the update from Measure H Committee Chair, Mr. Warner. Welcome, Mr. Warner. How are you? Thank you. We received your presentation, so I've reviewed it, but you may have more to offer, of course. Thank you for your service,
Hi
too.
there. Thank you. I'm Chris Warner. I'm Chair of your Measure H Advisory Committee. I think this is an interesting one to refresh you all on, because Measure H among your advisory committees is somewhat unique, just as a refresher. It's part of the very successful community adoption of Measure H in 2022. Part of the adoption of that ballot measure included what is fairly routine with bond measures, which is an appointment of a citizen advisory committee. So this is one of your advisory committees that's actually required by law and is responsive to voters. And again, I think it's important that we recognize that it's also advisory only. It only advises as to certain aspects of the management administration of the Measure H bond proceeds. So with that in mind, I want to just mention we've got very good members, collegial. I'm representing those members tonight. We've got myself, Jeff Green as vice chair. We have Richard Corsetti as a member, Jay Kuba, Mario Trinchero. Again, very well-known members of the community, very experienced in finance. And I think that's been one of the things that's been very good about our little committee. Our committee is also very well supported by our city staff. I want to in particular commend Mandy Kellogg and Joe Leach, because among their 24/7 duties have been that on occasion as we meet, as a Measure H committee, they have done great service to providing us updates on Measure H bond proceeds and administration and projects, and also answering every one of our questions. And again, this is financial expertise that's very important, and they have served us very, very well. We've had 5 meetings, August 2023, February 2024, September 2024, February 2025, and most recently, April 1st of 2025. Our agendas have included, as I mentioned with Mandy and Joe supporting us, our GO, or general obligation bond conditions under Measure H, the tranches, the issuances, updates on the general obligation bond projects. Remember, they're part of your CIP, I think, and Joe will correct me here, the Measure H GO projects are about 7% or so of our overall CIP. So as Joe and Mandy update us as a Measure H committee, they've really done a great job of putting these GO bond projects in the context of our overall CIP program. And most importantly, we've looked at the CIP project schedule for these bond-supported projects, as well as compliance with the actual terms of Measure H. And with that, I want to just summarize what our findings have been so you know. Generally, we found that all expenditures have been consistent with the terms of the bond offering. We do note that not all the current issued proceeds of the bonds have yet been spent for the first tranche, and I want to mention something about that in a minute. And what is really important here is that, as Mandy and Joe have informed us, there are certain restrictions in terms of how soon or what the deadlines are for use of the bond proceeds. There's some dates coming up this fall, and I think what will be important is not just that Mandy and Joe and maybe our city attorney advise us on the dates and the deadlines for obligating those proceeds of the bonds, but maybe the city council gets an update on that. I think we are anticipating, based on what we've heard from staff, is there won't be an issue of any disallowance of use of the bond proceeds with that deadline, but it's something that we think should be looked at as we get closer to what I think is a November 2025 deadline. It's a 3-year deadline, and these bonds were issued in the fall of 2022. There is no, and I think staff has already mentioned this to you, and we're supportive of this, there's no deadline for issuing tranche 2 of the bonds. And remember, one of the success stories here is the voters approved in a pretty good majority authorization of over 19 million in bonds, which defray the overall costs of our CIP projects. And so these were really targeted at the needs for our water system primarily, and that's a success. But you have to recognize that the timing for issuing second and third tranches of these bonds depends on interest rates, depends on market conditions, depends on all sorts of things which the city is not in the control of. But Mandy and Joe have been very good at looking at that for us, advising us. At least for now, we do not have a date for the second and third tranche for this 19 million in bonds. So I want to mention our continued agendas include continued monitoring and briefing by city staff on Measure H compliance, and also consider any bond compliance issues, as I mentioned, that may arise when they come up. With that, I'll try to leave it open if you have any questions. But again, I think this is a success story of basically a financial success story for the city, because these bonds are very valuable in terms of defraying overall costs of financing, overall costs to the budget of the city. And again, I want to compliment my fellow committee members for their diligence in participating, and also compliment city staff for its support for the advisory committee. That's all I have, but I'm open if you have any questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you for the report. Are you able to tell us what the balance is now of that?
I think we still,
Unspent balance?
I think, and Mandy can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had something like over 5 million for the first tranche, and we are only at about 2 million in actual expenditures. And that really depends upon, again, as Joe is very familiar with, the progress of our CIP projects. You can't really forecast with certainty the progress of obligating bond proceeds like this for CIP projects. It depends on a lot of management issues, a lot of bidding issues, a lot of contractor issues. And so I think it's safe, and Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, that we're not yet near even using the first tranche of bond proceeds. But we hope to be obligating those as the CIP program accelerates. Joe, do you have
Yeah,
anything to add to
I
that?
think the only add that I'd have to that is the Cornella Pump Station was one of the more significant projects that were being funded through the first tranche, and so that'll eat into getting us really close to that 5 million. And so Mr. Warner is correct. We're working through that process.
But we have to keep kind of pushing and giving the staff the support they need, because doing these projects, we know from Measure H committee, these are complex projects, and they don't always go according to what might be an ideal schedule.
All right. I had one question when you, and maybe it's just a use of a terminology that you had. You said defray, that we're lucky that our costs are being defrayed. Ultimately, our taxpayers, our property owners are paying that cost, correct? So tell me more about that in terms of what the benefit is
Thinking
there.
of the financing mechanisms here, basically, if you had to spend operating revenues for all these CIP projects or the GO bond projects versus financing them over time, and when you think about it, if you have an interest rate, obviously the taxpayers are paying the interest on the bonds. On the other hand, taxpayers' own discount rates are usually higher, so you'd much rather finance in certain circumstances at a good interest rate than have to pay out of your pocket today. So if you use a credit card rate, which is very simplistic, let's say that if we had to pay all this today, taxpayers would view that as a 26 or 29% interest rate because they're financing it out of their pocket. Cities financing out of the taxpayer's pocket. But if you get a 5% or lower municipal interest rate for over the time period of the bonds, the taxpayers are better off. That's why bond financing is done routinely by municipalities. Does that answer your question?
Understood, and that's what I understood you to mean, so I just want to clarify. Anything else to add to that, Mr. Camello? Ms. Deasy, of course, yeah.
Thank you. The one question I have is, are we spending the money fast enough? And I recognize there's a lot of variables that go into that, between interest rates and projecting interest rates, which you can't really do, and the amount of time it takes to plan a project. But at the same time, I recognize how needed the repairs are. So is there anyone that can talk to that?
Well, again, our advisory committee has no ambit or scope of advice regarding how the money is spent. Might defer to staff, and of course you all have the CIP project, the projects that you approve in terms of schedule, but I'll defer to staff if they have any response to that.
So the short answer to your question is no, we are not developing projects fast enough. We're working on that. Yeah.
Good question, and yeah, we have to be diligent. We don't want to get ourselves into trouble or lose the funds ultimately, or as you said, have it disallowed.
And again, my final comment is, I think this is a great success story. You got to keep in mind, Measure H was voted on when we were just coming out of COVID. So the community came together to vote for it, and then staff came together with expert outside advice for the issuance of the bonds, and now we've got staff supporting actually implementing the projects financed by the bonds.
Right. Mr. Camello, we may want to have in the coming months maybe an update on the expenditure of the funds and what we can do to sort of push projects along, just at least to make sure that we're complying with the ordinance, our obligations. And it'd be nice to get an update on that so that we can, I guess, exercise our oversight over it. We can't make it go faster, but we should at least be aware of where the roadblocks are.
Will do.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mr. Warner. Appreciate your service.
Thank you.
How many committees are you on?
None that I can charge you.
I know the feeling, Mr. Warner. Thank you. All right. Let me get back on my agenda here, see where I am. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any other staff briefing as far as I know, so we're moving to the consent calendar. Mr. Camello, are there any items that the staff wishes to pull for further explanation or clarification?
Short answer is yes.
Okay.
I'm scrambling to find the item. Let's see here. Give me a minute, please.
It's all right, take your time. What's the topic?
Gosh, yes, thank you. I should remember this. 10.9.
10.9, okay. That's the LAIF authorized signatures staff report. Okay, we'll pull that. How about my colleagues? Any other items for further clarification or? All right. Anyone from the audience wishing to have a further conversation on any matter? Come to the mic and announce the topic and.
10.6.
10.6, thank you.
10.2 and 10.4.
Okay,
10.2 and 10.4 if you didn't get that, Mayor.
thank you. All right, 2, 10, 4. All right, then we'll take those one at a time when we get to them, but I'll look for a motion to adopt the balance of the consent calendar. That would exclude 10.2, 10.4, 10.9, and 10.6.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion to adopt the consent calendar with the items noted as excluded. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I'll have a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
Councilmember Spataroto,
Yes.
Summers,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Camella, I'm going to look to you as we go through these, and you can decide who should be giving the staff report and the length of it. I don't know what the particular top question is, but let's start with 10.2. Maybe a brief, very brief report, and then we'll get maybe more clarification. I think Mr. Belt asked for that one.
Mr. Mayor, I wondered whether, just to focus our attention, since that particular item is a routine item, if we can ask what the question is so we can focus our attention, would that be helpful?
I think, Mr. Lee, why don't you briefly introduce the topic, briefly introduce it, to give a summary so that folks at home know what we're talking about. Then I will have Mr. Belt give the clarification, just a couple sentences.
Yeah, so on this particular item, Mayor and Council and Public, what this is annually staff is to bring before the council and community the disposition of the water supply. And really, this should be taking place in August or September, and according to the municipal code, at the end of the fiscal year. And so, to look at the rainfall, to look at the capacity in both Bell Canyon, and how things are active with City of Napa and our supply there, and with Stonebridge Wells, and declare as to whether we need to declare or pending declare a phase water emergency, whether it's phase 1 or phase 2. And so what this presentation has done is it's looked at the trends, it looked at the capacities, and determined that we don't foresee that needing to happen over the course of the balance of this fiscal year.
All right. Mr. Belt, if you want to make public comment or ask a question, that would be fine at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, I read the report. I read the report, and I have a couple of questions regarding towards the end of the report. I was interested in why Public Works Director is recommending to conserve Bell Canyon water by minimizing the treatment operations at the Louis Estrella plant. That's one of my questions. And word has it that the updated safe yield analysis by West Yost is now recommending a safe yield after 15% water loss of about 1,360 acre-feet for our new annual safe yield. And my question to City Council is, how is that going to affect the Phase 1 and Phase 2 emergencies if our safe yield is so much lower than it is correct right now? I'm concerned that our water rates are quite high as they are, and if our safety, I believe that the penalties associated with Phase 1 and Phase 2 are tied to safe annual yield. So if we go down to 1,360 acre feet, that's almost 600 acre feet less. And specifically, why are we saving the Bell Canyon water when it's traditionally been our main source of water? I mean, you said in your report that there's 1,752 acre feet available for us there. I'm just curious why this is happening. So.
All right, thank you for your questions. Complicated and complex questions, and if, well, Mr. Leach, let you decide how you want to respond to those.
So I think it would be helpful if it's okay to you, Mr. Mayor, if Mr. Belt could come back to the podium and I kind of carve out one of those at a time. He made reference to one comment in the report, and I was kind of looking for that particular comment so that I could respond to it. If that's acceptable, or I can just respond high level.
No, that's fine. I don't, Mr. Belt, you can engage with Mr. Leach and we'll watch.
Okay. Do you remember saying that we have 1,752 acre feet in the reservoir at the available to us?
Yes, I'm looking at, there's an exhibit on page 9 of the PDF, and it reflects about 2,204 acre feet, so that's around the 1,700 thereabouts. Yeah.
I wrote this down from from your report, but I noticed that you basically stated that in the overall plan, you're looking to use less of the Bell Canyon water as the years progress, and I was curious why that is.
So the in part is because we rely on Bell Canyon for fire flow. And as I think there's an exhibit, it might be in the monthly report that reflects the different stages of storage within Bell Canyon. And that's what's driving the phase 1 and phase 2 water emergency declaration, is if Bell Canyon gets to a certain level, and that's when we declare phase 1 emergency. So that's somewhat tied to safe yield, because it's tied to the amount of rainfall that comes into Bell Canyon.
Yes.
And so the safe yield report that we brought to both Water Wastewater Advisory Committee, and then last week to the Active Transportation Sustainability Committee, which we will be bringing to council probably either later this month or first meeting in September, will kind of also illuminate how that fits into declaration of water emergencies. But at this time, this particular report doesn't take that into account because it's not an adopted policy yet.
Okay, it's my understanding from the research I've done about the city's water supply that we are obligated to keep 25% of the amount of water in Bell Canyon for fire service. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yep. If we have, as you said, something over actually 1,752 acre feet, 25% would be roughly less than 500 acre feet of water.
Yeah, I think it's about 525.
Yeah,
if you look on the monthly exhibit reflects that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I've talked to people on our safe water, our water and wastewater committee, mm-hmm. and what I've been told, and that we're getting off the subject.
We are.
Okay. But
okay. I just want to make sure that we have enough public dialogue, but not have, we can go on forever and talk about this.
Okay, let me just say this. I am very concerned that with a new annual safe yield going into the 1,300 acre feet, that we are going to be looking at severe penalties to people and having to pay much higher water rates in the future. Okay.
Understood, yeah. Okay, thank you. Others wishing to address your council on this item? And I also encourage Mr. Leach to maybe, if you want to send more detailed response in terms of some of the questions. One of them, I think you answered, but maybe a little bit more detail on why we are pivoting to sort of retaining Bell. I think you've answered it.
Yes.
It's not entirely clear to me. Maybe a little bit more on that to Mr. Belt, because I do think that's a good question mm-hmm. To answer. And it is interesting to look at, of course, the effect on the safe yield and then the effect on potential penalties. And I don't fully understand that issue, and so maybe you can talk to Mr. Bell to get more clarification, and then we can all be brought up to speed on that concern. I understand the concern in general, but I don't really understand the details of that. Other questions here? Then I'll look for, I don't think anyone else wants to make a public comment here at this point. I've asked for it. So I'll close public comment on that item. We're going to go through the list. I'll look for a motion to adopt, I'll look for a motion on 10.2. This is just to receive the report at this point.
Motion to receive the water supply update?
Yep.
Second.
All right, there's a motion on 10.2 to receive the report, fiscal year 2024-2025, City of St. Helena water supply update and projected water demand. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. That motion passes. 10.2 passes. We'll go to 10.6. Oh, yep. That was, I thought it was a 7-4. Sorry. 10.4, Mr. Camello. This is the OTS contract, and maybe just a very brief summary of it again. And we'll invite the person who asked for this item to be pulled to maybe clarify their concern or have whatever their comment is. Mr. Leach.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this item is to, in fact, extend a contract with OTS. It's actually to execute a new professional services agreement. The prior agreement is outdated, so we're looking at executing a new one. This is specifically for chief plant operator services at the wastewater treatment plant. We've had challenges with recruiting for that position over longer than my tenure here, which is close to 3 years. And so we do have qualified staff member who desires to continue to remain in that position. The other component of the $66,000 and $66,200 and change is an underbilling issue that OTS discovered per their hourly rates. And so it was an accounting error on their part, and we believe that they are due that monies according to the contract. And so this action is to rectify that as well.
All right, I'll open it for public comment.
That was mine. I pulled that. Oh.
Yeah, public comment. That's you. I wasn't sure who pulled it, so I was kind of keeping my options open there. I know it was you or Mr. McKelly, so thank you.
A little joke, if I may. Do you remember the time we stood outside these chambers and you said, Mr. Belt, you have too high of expectations for city government? Do you remember that time?
I plead the fifth.
And I'd also like to say I was known as Mr. Galbraith's nemesis, so
That's right.
I apologize for seeming to be so critical.
Mr. Belt, my expectations of city government is equally as high as yours, to let you know that. I may not express that in the same way that you do, but they are high.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And I might add that I have the same expectations of myself that I have on city government.
Indeed.
But,
what is your thought here on this
my
one?
concern here is, I've asked this question several times prior to Mr. Camello's position as our city manager, and I would like to ask Mr. Leach if he knows how much money the city has spent for hiring this position since 2021, because we haven't been able to attract a permanent treatment operator. And I would guess that the city has spent somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2 to $3 million over and above what it would cost to hire a permanent position. And I've heard the justification that we've tried and we've tried and we've tried to find one, to hire one. Obviously, we're not trying hard enough. And I don't know what it's going to take. I would expect that it might take a raise in salary. It may take a stipend, maybe, to get someone to live here because it's so expensive. But this is just another example of how we seem to, year after year, run out of some money to pay for capital improvement projects because we're spending millions of dollars for things that maybe we wouldn't have to if we were more aggressive and somehow of getting a permanent position here. I do know you've been recruiting it. It's been going on since 2021 when Mr. Presswich was our city manager. And I mean, at one time, we were hiring as many as 3 and 4 people from OTS to do these jobs. And it's just, as a person who pays wastewater bills and water rates, I mean, I keep on looking at ways we can do a better job. So that's it. I'm concerned that we keep on doing this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't think anyone will disagree with your frustration.
I just want to thank Tom for his service to the community and overseeing these water issues over a long period of time, and Lester Hardy before him. The other thing is when the Water and Wastewater Group WASH was meeting, we had a meeting with Ann Cottrell, and she recommended that we talk to the city of Napa or Napa County and sub-hire or have them hire for us, and then they lend us personnel that have the appropriate credentials. And I've brought that up a couple times. I don't know if it's been pursued, and I just want to throw that in the ring again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wheaton. You want to, I think it is accurate to say $2 to $3 million is a pretty wide number, but I don't know, the over and above, I'm not sure about that part of it, but certainly we've spent a lot of money on the OTS contract.
Yeah, I mean, the staff report does enumerate that through the 7 amendments, just for wastewater, it's over $1.5 million. So since 2021. And to Mr. Belt's point, I think at certain times that was more than one staff member at the wastewater treatment plant. At times we had both the chief plant operator and an operator 1 to help fill positions that we had vacancies. So at this point we have 2 city full-time staff at the wastewater treatment plant and then now the OTS employee. I think also that we could, I would put in the category of celebrating both staff and council efforts on recruitment and creativity in salaries and signing bonuses related to the chief plant operator for the water treatment plant. Again, similar type of dynamic for a number of years, difficulty filling that position, and now we've had a person in that position, Michelle Farrell, for nearly a year now, and so very excited about having a full-time person in that position. But that in part came through the efforts of salary adjustments, signing bonuses, and being creative.
You make a good point. Thank you. Mr. Camilla, anything else to add with respect to, particularly with respect to the other activities the city is doing with our neighbors? Conversations to have happen, I know, but Mr. Camilla.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think, look, staff has also felt the frustration, frankly, of the large amount of cost associated with the filling of these positions. So I'm glad that we now have most of our positions filled in the water and the wastewater sections. We still have this one position that we have not been able to fill. It's been challenging. We have in fact had multiple conversations over a couple of years now with our neighbors both to the north and our south. Napa Sand, Napa Water, Calistoga, and others in the effort of trying to find some way in which either they will lend us staff or take over management of the utility, or even provide on contract staff. So we have tried various models. For one reason or the other, we haven't been successful, and so we have. Well, now that we have almost full staff, except for this one position, we are trying to get out of the OTS contract desperately, and so I'm done. So, which is why we are frankly looking at other alternatives, and we have now a potentially viable solution. It's also why, by the way, we have been exploring the housing option at the water and wastewater treatment plant. I think when we get around to it, we'll be installing modular housing there, which will be able to house staff and make it more attractive to work for us. I also want to point out that our recruitment efforts, they were quite aggressive. One of the times we actually went and asked the state to give us the certification and the addresses of every single person that had various certifications, and we did a mass mailing to their homes. We got a lot of feedback, but the feedback that we did get was, we can't move up there, it's too expensive. We are making good money here, wherever here was. And despite our signing bonuses and other increases, it wasn't lucrative enough for people to move up here. So our efforts continue. I think we have a viable solution now, particularly when we build housing. It will become viable. But yeah, these kind of contracts are not a long-term solution, and we need to discontinue them.
All right. Vice Mayor, do you have a question?
I do have a question. Thank you, and I'm excited about the work for the housing, which I think will make it very more attractive to fill that position. But I wanted to point out that I think there's a huge shortage across the state. So we can do all of these things, but it's an uphill battle to attract people that don't exist. So I guess I've always wondered, and I believe the other cities are having almost as much trouble as we are. So I have wondered about in those conversations with the other cities if we're talking about coming together such that there is outreach and then training that exists in Napa County. Because I think Solano County is where you have to go. I don't know. There's nowhere to get trained here, so it seems.
It's a conversation that various public works directors and HR directors have been having. In some agencies, like East Bay Mud and in Contra Costa, they've had programs with a lot of success where they've been growing their own. And of course, then we feed and hopefully feed off of those positions, which means that we need to be more attractive than those positions, which is, of course, challenging. In our case, we have had some dare I say, less tenured employees join us, and we are investing in them. We're providing them incentives to get the training so they'll stay with us. Our challenge and my fear, and Director Leach's as well, ACM Leach's as well, is keeping them long term, because as they get more certifications, they become more and more valuable on the market. And if we are not competitive compensation-wise, they will go. So in addition to compensation, by the way, it's also about keeping the work environment friendly and supportive and interesting and challenging, and yet investing in them on a continual basis.
All right, thank you for that comment and that question. If there's not any other questions or comments on this matter, I'll look for a motion on the staff's recommendation. This is item 10.4.
Make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing payment of underbilled amount to operational technical services.
All right.
Second the motion.
And also enter into the new professional services agreement, correct? Yes. All right. All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor of adopting the staff's recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Passes. Okay, now we're on to 10.6, Mr. Camello. Sidewalks.
It's your day, Mr. Leach.
Well, I'm not sure we thought this day was ever going to come. So I put in the category at the precipice of actually going out to bid for this project. We've received some critical approvals from Caltrans this very week. And so we're hoping to go out to bid within the next 2 weeks on the downtown sidewalk project. And again, as a reminder to council and the public, this is actually rehabilitating the sidewalks on Main Street between Adams and Pine on both sides of the street. Curb gutter sidewalk, trees, putting in electrical conduit for the streetlights, some blank conduit for future signal interconnections, so irrigation systems. So it's a comprehensive project to beautify that stretch of downtown.
All right. Any public comment on this matter? Ms. McKelly, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Anthony McKelly. I was a general contractor in St. Helena for 40 years. I retired 10 years ago. I'm not against this project, but the way it's presented, I'm against. I have talked to Eric Jensen, the Assistant Public Works Director. You are not, they're going to pour new concrete, new steel, and you're not replacing the water lines under this unless things have changed, and I hope Mr. Leach will correct me. You're not replacing all the sewer lines. You're not replacing anything that goes to the old city hall that you're selling. So what happens if that project wants more services? You're going to jackhammer out all the cement, all the steel for more services to it, unless you're going to come by Railroad Avenue, and maybe you're going to do that, and I hope Mr. Leach will correct me. There is, according to Mr. Jensen, they're going to put score lines in the concrete. They're going to come back and cut the concrete if water lines leak or sewer lines fail. And when you pour concrete, it's not the same color a month later from the batch that you got. And the guy who's going to finish that little square is going to be different, and it's going to look like a patchwork. It's not going to be a beautiful job, which that's my only concern, that the city doesn't go back and do this job again. You're going to take out all the trees, but you're going to replace them with the Chinese pistachio. And I've hammered on this tree, and according to Google, this tree grows 50 feet tall, 40 feet wide, and it's not recommended for 14 feet from a building. The lady who spoke earlier in public comment told you about these big trees infecting buildings. And this project has a 1.2 grant money to it, but the project is estimated at $3,578,277. So that's at least $2 million out of your pocket of the city. And I actually think this estimate is low. And I just think you've got to rethink this project to include everything that is under that concrete. It's not like the pavers downtown that you can just lift them up like we did in a few months ago or a year ago and corrected all the root problems. You got to jackhammer it out, and it's going to be ugly. And so I would appreciate, and the city's responsibility is to the water meter. Okay, and to the sewer where there's approved clean out. That's the city's responsibility. So I would appreciate, well, I got a lot of time left, but I would appreciate Mr. Leach to explain to me that maybe this project has changed and you're going to redo all the water lines, and how you're going to address that city hall property when you sell it, because it's going to be egg on your faces if we got to jackhammer a lot of it out. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. McKelly.
Yeah. I'm waiting for a response from Mr. Leach if those things are not included in the project, or are they now?
Well, you can sit down and we'll wait for the response, Mr. McKelly. Thank you.
Thanks.
So to clarify, the sewer laterals, many of the sewer laterals are being replaced by the sewer lateral project that's coming for you at the next meeting for award. So that's one component. And to clarify also that the sewer laterals for businesses, residences, property owners, that's all really the maintenance and responsibility of property owners to maintain and repair those as they take place. The sewer lateral project that we're doing is actually taking some grant money and repairing some of those downtown. In regards to water services, yes, it is the city's responsibility to maintain the water service from the main to and including the meter. That is not part of this project. There was not funding for that component of this, the needs for there was no funding at the time for that component of the project. So Mr. McKelly is correct that if things happen, staff will have to go in and repair those as needed, as with many other projects around town. Trees, I know we went through quite a robust community engagement process with what we call Phase 1B when we did the trees and paver rehab project. I need to confirm with Mr. Jansen, I'm sorry that I'm flying a little blind, as to whether this project has been updated to account for that engagement. So we will confirm that. And
Okay.
I think that captures most of what he had addressed.
All right. Other public comment?
Kelly Wheaton, I was the one that addressed the tree issue the last time it was before you. And Anthony's right. These trees, I mean, over the time I've lived here, which is, 35 years, I think there's been 3 or 4 iterations and replacements of trees, and every time we're reassured that the trees will be fine and they won't lift the sidewalk and whatever. And whoever's advising you or wherever you're getting your information is not good. I took pictures last time I spoke here showing, just in my neighborhood, Chinese pistache, and the other one that you were looking at, which was the Zelkova. And there's a real disconnect. And I'm happy to help, but it's just such a mistake to keep doing the same thing over and over again by putting trees that are inappropriate in at city expense, and then all the expense that's incurred when they pull up the sidewalk and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bell.
I own the property at 1606 Hillview, and I have a pistachio tree growing on that property. And the PG&E comes out and cuts it because it comes within the power lines over the head. And I would guess that the other parts of the tree that aren't within 10 feet of the power line are close to 50 or 60 feet tall. So if you don't believe me, go by 1606 Hillview and look at the pistachio tree growing there, okay?
We believe you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
All right, other public comment? I'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Any other discussion here or questions before we look for a motion? Ms. Deasy.
Are the trees a part of this, or is that a separate?
It is a part of the
part of this,
project,
thank
yes.
you.
All right, other comments or questions for staff? Ms. Batteroto, yes.
I hate to do this, but at the same time, I think we need to spend more time on this.
Okay. All right. I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve item 10.6, adopting the staff's recommendation to, adopt the resolution authorizing the Public Works Department to publish the bid announcement for the Main Street St. Helena pedestrian improvement project. Is there a second? I'll make the second, and we'll have Madam Clerk have a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Deasy?
Yes.
Mayor Doring?
Yes.
Councilmember Spataroto?
No.
Summers?
No.
Okay, that motion fails. Tie vote is a no vote here, and so we'll bring that back with a little more fine tuning, maybe a little bit more work. The tree issue, maybe a little bit more update on anything else that has arisen.
Certainly.
Today. Move the item forward. Thank you. All right. On to 10.9, Mr. Camello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll call upon Director of Admin Services, Ms. Kellogg, to make some opening comments.
Ms. Kellogg, welcome.
All right, good evening, Mayor and council members. This item is related to the Local Agency Investment Fund, otherwise known as LAIF, which is a tool for the city to invest funds in. The specific purpose of this staff report is to adopt a new resolution to grant specific staff members authority to transfer funds to and from LAIF for investment purposes. The existing resolution that LAIF has on file is Resolution 82-15. However, that resolution was rescinded in 1985 and replaced with 85-17, which was also rescinded and replaced with 87-19. While Resolution 87-19 has some current titles listed, LAIF will not accept an updated resolution unless it is on the LAIF-specific format. And the last contribution made to LAIF was in 2014. And since that date, the only investment earnings that have been rolled back into, or the only thing that's been rolled back into it is the investment earnings. As mentioned previously, LAIF is one of the investment tools currently utilized by the city. In addition, the city maintains a California Asset Management Program, CAMP, managed account. Both LAIF and CAMP are widely used by government agencies because they're designed to prioritize safety, liquidity, and competitive returns within the legal constraints of public funds. LAIF offers a simple, cost-effective means to invest excess funds with the ability to deposit or withdraw on a daily basis, making it ideal for meeting short-term cash flow needs. It is backed by the state of California and invests in a diverse portfolio of high-quality short-term securities, reducing exposure to market volatility. Similarly, CAMP provides local agencies with access to a professionally managed investment portfolio that complies with the California Government Code investment guidelines. CAMP offers greater flexibility in tailoring investments to match the city's cash flow needs while still maintaining high liquidity and a conservative risk profile. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Anything else to offer there, Mr. Camelo? Questions? At this point, I'll open it to public comment.
Mark Smithers, Vallejo Street. I think I'm talking on my own behalf and not representing the Finance Committee. And I appreciate the narrowness of Mandy's staff report and the fact that it's related just to the LAIF, I guess, fund. But I hope we quickly move towards a bigger cash management understanding here. And I do have a couple of specific concerns about the resolution of the authorized signers. We really do have, I mean, I know we're talking, or it was mentioned in here that if we moved $8 million over to additional $8 million that over the last 3 years, and accountability is an important thing. I mean, I think that, there's over the last 3 years, there was probably $20 million that could have been moved over there, and there could have been $2 million of additional interest income. And I think that's a big part of the situation that sort of exists between the city and city council and the community, and we're one big family, all of us together. And if we're one big family together and somebody has an argument at dinner, the next day, that person that maybe was being a little bit more aggressive than they should have been or took a different position does a mea culpa. And they say, you know what, I screwed up. This was a big deal. I shouldn't have done what I said, or I shouldn't have said what and I don't see that happening from the city or the city council. I don't see them saying, hey, guess what? You're right. We messed up. We really, we could have made $2 million more over the last 3 years. And we're all talking about finances and the funds that we have and wanting to tax the taxpayers. And I just don't feel that that's happening. We've painted part of the picture. And I appreciate, again, that Mandy was dealing specifically with just the one fund that we're talking about here to get, opening up so that we can move monies back and forth that we didn't have the last iteration was 1985 or 87 or something, which is amazing. So we never hear that from the community. The community never hears the city just say, we're one big family, we're all in this together, we want you to help us, they want us to help them. And when there is a problem or an issue, it just doesn't happen. Nobody says, yeah, you're right, and we could do better. And we're going to do better, and can you help us do better? That just doesn't happen. And that's what I want to start hearing that from town. Hopefully we won't, because there won't be any more situations where there aren't. But again, I know how audits work and how things work, and you end up uncovering things all the time. But it'd be really nice to hear once in a while that not being defensive, but being like yeah, because I had all kinds of emails today, and it was all defensive, that was saying that, you're overstating the issue, or I don't care what, people in town think about this or that or the other thing, or everybody gets to be crazy or, get excited about things. It's like, but it's $2 million. And where I used to work, and I'm going to run out of time here, 10 seconds, we had the My Buck theory. And I think that everybody that works for city government and everybody at city council should think of the My Buck theory. And if you were short $2 million over the last 3 years, that would be a big deal. So can we all just kind of come together as a family and be willing to disagree, but then try to move forward and do better? But at the same time, you have to acknowledge what happened. You can't bury it and pretend it didn't.
Mr. Smithers, your time has expired.
Thanks.
It has expired, Mr. Smithers, so the nice comment was not acceptable. I gently said your time has expired.
And I said thanks. I said, okay. Come on, Paul.
I'm Chris Warner.
Thank you. Mr. Warner.
I'm also here only individually. I think you're going to hear that actually even among us as individuals here today on this issue, there's disagreement, but we're not being disagreeable, or there's no need to be disagreeable. My approach on this is to look forward to the opportunities to actually maximize cash management opportunities for the city. This is a big deal. This is not a matter of what we did in the past versus what we're doing in the future. In looking at the numbers that staff has provided, by the way, staff has initiated providing these numbers to all of us because what was presented to the Finance Committee is a public record. I think it's very, very important that the staff, the council, with help if possible from the Finance Committee, but the staff and the council have a great opportunity here to actually move money into greater interest-bearing accounts that still maintain the operating cash flow flexibility for the city. I don't want to talk about what happened in the past. I don't think that's useful, frankly. And again, with all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Smithers, it's important what we do in the future. And if we sit around and wait and not address this, we're leaving money on the table that I think our community really would expect us to actually go after. And I think also Councilmember Barak, who's not here, has been a great resource along with Mandy and our staff to basically say, okay, here's mechanically what we can do. I think what we do lack that we still need to do work on is, I don't think it's limited to 8 million. I agree with Mr. Smithers. I think there's an opportunity, as Mr. Smithers has demonstrated, that while interest rates may remain high, we have flexibility with LAIF and CAMP and maybe some other accounts. We need to move that cash quickly into those accounts and make money for our taxpayers and defray some of our operating deficit. I might finally point out that there's also the issue of over-reliance above $250,000 in any bank account. What we learned from Silicon Valley Bank in 2023 was the feds will not pay you if a bank fails if you have more than $250,000 in it. So there's also a very good prudent reason to address this quickly. So my only point is, I'm not worried about what happened in the past. I mean, you and the council and the staff can take lessons learned on that as you so choose. But as an individual taxpayer, not on the Finance Committee, please move very quickly to expand the policy that's really reflected in part in the resolution today, and to move forward to get this money transferred where it will make money for us and defray our operating deficit. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Ms. Corsetti.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome. Good.
So I'm not representing myself, I'm representing the Finance Committee. And we have been meeting, and we've been working diligently, and one of the things we found is that we have different processes. There's some are codified, some are not codified. And so when you have non-codified processes, that what happens generally is that maybe you don't get the outcome you really want. So one of the things that we are going to undertake, and we will do this on a more expedited, is to look at the series of cash managing the various investments and optimizing our returns. And then working with Mandy and her staff, not separately, and come to something that we feel would be good for the city and then codify it so that it becomes part of the city record. Because right now, there's a lot of stuff, and it's all done with good intention, but it's not consolidated, and it's not necessarily codified to the city council. So we will be undertaking that in the next month or two.
Thank you.
Elaine DeMann. I don't have the benefit of having been on the Finance Committee, but I did read through this, this item. And what struck me was giving signing authority to 4 different people. That just seems like a lot of different people who have their fingers in the pot. And I'm kind of half remembering that situation. Paul, perhaps you remember with the flood control project where somebody on the city staff wrote a check for $9 million they shouldn't have. And I'm not sure if I got that right, but anyway, it seems like 4 people, to me, just kind of rings all kinds of alarm bells. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll close the public comment. Staff wishing to make any brief comments on some of the items, and I'll make some comments also. Who would like? Mr. Camelli?
Yeah, I can start, Mr. Mayor. So thank you for this. I just want to start by saying this is one of the successes of the Finance Committee. This is one of the recommendations that came out of the Finance Committee, which was, I think, brought to light the fact that we were leaving money on the table, what's called opportunity cost. I just want to clarify the words. This is not money that was lost. In other words, we didn't lose principal. We did not lose as much. We did not gain as much as we could have. And I think that's unfortunate. And I look at the history of this organization. To put things into context, we as a city have been extremely conservative. We are extremely conservative on our projection of our revenues, of our expenditures, going back a long time. The benefit of that has been that we have had a good reserve policy and, in fact, good reserve accumulation. In looking at this particular issue, it was, I identified the fact that we have gone back, gosh, about a decade, we have not used this capability of using LAIF, excuse me. The city did, however, use CAMP, but not as much of the capacity as possible. So, should we have put more money in over the last several years? Absolutely. And I can just tell you that I'm personally embarrassed because most city managers don't have the background I do in finance, and I got to tell you that when I came here, I did ask the questions, but I didn't follow up on it. So if anybody on our current staff is responsible for this, for not looking at this, it's me. And I sincerely apologize for that, because I should have known better. That said, what I really appreciate is the fact that we now have an oversight committee that's diligent, that's looking forward to it, that's working collaboratively under the leadership of Arlene Cressetti and Chris Warner. I'm expecting that as we move forward, we will develop policies and procedures so we can have proper oversight. As to the issue of signing authority, mind you, this signing authority that's been asked for is strictly to move money into LAIF. It's not to spend money, just to be clear. So it is intended to ensure that we can move it efficiently. I also want to say that, as I was talking about the conservative policies of the past, lots of numbers are being thrown around. Our estimate is that it's a significant amount of money that we could have probably earned. But recognize that there are risks associated with various kinds of investments, and government policies are intentionally restrictive in order to protect the asset that is the principal corpus of the agency. And yes, you can have, under certain circumstances, as an example, investments that are not that have higher return, like for example in the market, but it's limited to 5%. So it's not like we could have taken an entire portfolio and put it in the stock market or even in bonds. Secondly, we need to be thinking about diversification. We also need to be thinking about how do we maintain liquidity and access to our dollars or to our funds in order for us to maintain operational effectiveness. So we have already moved in some directions. We have talked to our bank and explained to them that we need to, and I've asked, and they're working on the details so we can have a sweep account so that we can maintain a particular dollar amount, and we can set that threshold in collaboration with the finance committee and our municipal advisor. And anything in excess of that can automatically be shifted into an interest-bearing account where we can earn interest. So all I can say is that this is a good outcome from the finance committee. I'm looking to further improvements, and I think what we can look forward to is better management and closely managing of our cash of our treasury. I also want to say that the reason I am embarrassed about my own personal lack of what I would say asking the right questions is because I've been in my previous roles been responsible for the treasury function, where in larger organizations that I've been where I've had the finance portfolio, I had one person that does nothing but treasury, and they buy and sell bonds, they move monies around to ensure that we optimize the interest we receive, but at the same time maintain liquidity and maximum fidelity with the organization. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Camelo, for those comments. You know, I to a certain degree, I think the public has the right to expect its government to manage its money well. So we have obviously let the public down. These kinds of actions have happened during my tenure. When I have screwed up in the past, I've asked for forgiveness. I've said, you know, we're in prior situations. I've made mistakes in terms of how we communicate with the public. We've not done well enough on housing. We haven't done well enough on a variety of issues. So I do think it's a fair criticism of government to own up to mistakes. But I also recognize that we have to maintain staff morale and a high sense of good feeling here. You can do both, right? You can say, hey, that was we could do better there, and we will do better. I can assure you of that. This is one issue where it did not get on my radar. Maybe I made assumptions that we were getting some basic interest, and that was in error. I think that the original justification, and I don't know, I haven't gone back 10 years ago to figure out what was said during those meetings. We were not getting the interest rates we are now. There was probably a feeling of let's promote liquidity and security at the time. But we should have been over years, every other year, kind of looking at it again. And our investment policy requires us to look at it and get a report periodically, if not every year. And we should be getting that to see, so when a report comes, we can look at it and go, okay. But the thing I'm most proud of, and I'm sorry for that, and I apologize for that, we did screw up. I wanted to have the opportunity to say that, no doubt about it. But I also want to make sure that our staff is okay with making mistakes and learning from mistakes and getting better and doing the things we can do. We have an excellent staff, and we want to make sure that our staff knows that we support them. That's the other side of the coin for me. So it's not an easy black and white kind of situation, but I do accept responsibility for these kinds of mistakes, and we have to do better because we have a limited budget, and every dollar counts, and it's the same way in my house. So thank you for those comments. The other side of it, which has been pointed out, is that this is the whole reason for me supporting so strongly the Finance Committee, because I knew inherently that there were a lot of issues that smart people in our community could look at for us. And so, yes, it was a mistake that has been uncovered, but it's also a great use of community talent to find these things. And so that's the good side. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. It's actually a very productive outcome of the Finance Committee, which we should be celebrating. Yes, we should look back at it. I just want to say this. I think our community our staff would be more willing to be less defensive if there was a little bit more grace in our community. So even if I mention that, folks will shake their heads, and I get that. People disagree with me on this, but that's fine. But you have to invite folks to the table. If you just say, look, you screwed up, this is a travesty, these kinds of things, then we're not as receptive, and there's a sort of, I don't know, who goes first kind of thing. It's like, I think there are a number of people in our community that look at this, go, yeah, it was a mistake. We don't want to make the mistake anymore, but let's go on. Let's move on. And that's kind of where I am. I'm not ignoring the past. Just note that we're all human beings. I make mistakes. I try to own up to them when I do make mistakes. Takes me a while to get there, but I do get there. So I do appreciate the community's diligence on this matter. I know the community is frustrated. We pledge to be more diligent on these kinds of issues. I know our staff is in turmoil. This is hard for our staff. Recognize these are human beings, okay? And you have to try to motivate folks, just like in any kind of workplace setting. We have to try to do better, but we also want to make sure that we don't beat up on our staff as much as I've seen sometimes. That's all I want to say there. I thank you. I'm not here to lecture folks. I'm just trying to let you know that I've been on this planet for 65 years, and one of the things I do know about is human relations and how you get things done, and also how you maintain relationships. Everybody knows that's who I am. So that's kind of where we are. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything, but I'll look for a motion. The public comment is closed on the matter, but.
Can I just say one nice thing?
Well, if you want to say a nice thing, then I'll open public comment.
Well,
No.
because as we say.
I just brevity. Yeah, we're running way behind on our calendar, but go ahead.
Okay, but this will take 2 seconds. As I said, all this about the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee could not operate without Mandy and her staff. They have been spectacular. They spend time, and they never say no to us. So I just want to put that out there. The staff of the city is great.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Okay. Vice Mayor. Yeah, but still, we haven't a motion on the table yet, so more conversation is fine.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for all of the comment. Thank you to the staff. But I want to agree that I think it's important to own our mistakes and also be in an environment where it's safe to do that, because that's the only way we're going to all learn and get better. And as we think about the future, I'm hoping that like cash flow forecasts and also maybe a quarterly investment report that details investment balances would be viewable, kind of the way we see our water status. I guess that's quarterly. It would be great to. I think that would be a good and easy way to prevent that from happening again. That shouldn't be too much work. But thank you all, and yeah, let's learn from it.
I'll look for a motion on 10.9.
I'll give a motion on 10.9.
Okay, assume that's a motion to approve 10.9? Yes. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Spadafora?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy?
Yes.
Councilmember Summers?
Yes.
And Mayor Doran?
Yes, that motion passes. Good conversation from the public and from our council and from our staff. Thank you for that. All right. I'm looking at my agenda, Mr. Summers, and seeing where we are.
Thank you.
We have a public hearing. Let's do the public hearing, then we'll take a break. I don't think the public hearing will last very long, Mr. Leach. 11.1, we'll go through that item, and then we'll take a break right after that. Is that okay? I'll let you introduce the item, Mr. Leach, unless that's somebody else's. This is an annexation issue. It should go fairly quickly.
Very quickly, Mr. Mayor. This has become quite routine over the last few years with the council and staff and members of the public. We are here for a public hearing related to a sewer annexation specific to a property at 945 Main Street. And as you well know, this is a duplication of a slide that we often use. This is per our Muni Code. There's a particular section of the Muni Code. There's a process as it relates to filing paperwork with Napa County and Board of Equalization. This is the initial step. Then the property owner is responsible for all costs related to extension of sewer services to their property. Next slide, please. That is where the property is located. They intend to get service connection I believe it's either to Main Street or to the main line on Charter Oak Way. Next slide, please. And so the action that's being recommended tonight is there specifically for annexation into the city's municipal sewer service district number 1, annexation number 152. And with that, I will field any questions.
Any initial questions before I open the matter to the public, to the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing and invite comment on this item. All right, let me bring it back. I'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to council. The recommendation, it is recommended that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the annexation of the territories into the St. Helena Municipal Sewer District, number 1, MSD. I do just want one point that would be very helpful for me, Mr. Leach, if the property owners' names in the future are listed with respect to these. All of these are talking about the 945 Main Street, but it's difficult for me to evaluate conflicts of interest that I may have,
certainly.
not knowing who the various owners are of this property. I looked it up and I was able to figure out who the owners are, or potential, their number of owners associated with this address, but any other questions or comments from my colleagues? I'll look for a motion to adopt the staff's recommendation.
I'll make a motion to adopt the staff's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, we'll have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Summers,
Yes.
Spataroto,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. All right, that motion passes unanimously. Our next item we're going to be taking up is old business, and this is summary of actions taken to address fiscal adversity and describe upcoming steps and seek direction on potential actions. But before we do that, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Thank you. All right, we're going to reconvene. As I said, we're on to old business. Item 12.1 is Mr. Camello's summary of actions taken to address fiscal. All right, let me try it again. Summary of actions taken to address fiscal adversity and describe upcoming steps and seek direction on potential actions. That's general and wide open, Mr. Camello. I'll let you introduce the item, and we'll have a conversation, invite some public comment, and we're missing Mr. Barrick, and I know that Mr. Summers is back on it. There he is, right there. So we'll go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just want to explain the genesis of this item. We are, of course, not asking for any action today. The intent of this item was to essentially get the conversation started about our finances. Of course, we went through a budget process a few months ago, and of course, we have a deficit that's ongoing. I also want to point out that there are lots of assumptions in the various charts that you'll see. They're not intended to be taken as face value. There'll be continued refinement that will be required. I'm hoping to collaborate with the new leadership with the Finance Committee and provide some better data in the future. I also think that we need to have a longer, more detailed conversation about financial issues, because while we've gone through the budget process and we have a budget now in place, it hasn't solved underlying issues, underlying financial challenges. And so with the help of the Finance Committee, I'm hoping that we can refine these numbers and then come to get some solutions going. The intent, again, is to just refocus our attention on our city's budget and long-term finances with the lens of the numbers we already have. They're intended, again, to show the magnitude, not necessarily those numbers will change. With that, I just want to point out that we did have the budget process just finished, so we'll include some of those slides unchanged, and then I'll describe some of the assumptions that went into or the components of the structural deficit that we have estimated at this point, as well as the general fund reserves. So this is the first two charts. You have seen this before. The assumptions built in even here. Of course, we have an estimated revenues for $20.7 million, and expenditures of approximately $2 million. There are many assumptions that go into that. For example, what is the assumption for our main revenue sources of property tax, sales tax, and TOT? On the TOT, as an example, our Director of Admin Services had assumed a 2% increase. But after talking to the hotelers, who are very optimistic about the economy, and wanted me to put 4%, being conservative, we chose to go 3%. Again, that's an assumption. So I'm emphasizing assumptions because as we go through the slides, you'll see that those can make a huge difference in how we look at the future projections of the deficit. In this case, for the first year, we end the year with 42.8% of our reserves. With the second year of the two-year cycle, we expect to use $1.6 million of reserves, and we end the year with 34.2% reserves, which is just above the 30% city council policy for reserves in the general fund. This was questionable. I know the Finance Committee has some concerns, and we would love to get into the detail and determine what is our annual gap for capital improvement needs. We had gone through and created this document. Actually, a former assistant city manager did, in collaboration with a couple of our council members and members of the community previously, using previous documents and inflating them for net present value. Assuming all those are correct, we have a deficit of about $3.4 million annually. So if you look at, I was asked the question, if we had to have optimal services to the community, what would that be? And I estimated that based on input from the department heads that we would need about $4.5 million, 4.5 positions. Now, mind you, we're not recommending that we fill those positions now, because we certainly don't have the revenue to support that. The question again I was asked was, if we had to provide services to the community that the community expects in an optimal manner, what would that staffing level be? And so that's how we came up with that number of 4.5 positions. That would cost us just under $700,000. Similarly, we currently are not paying our employees market median based on the salary survey. And so the question again was asked, if we paid employees market wages at median, what would that cost us? Again, it's just under $700,000. In addition, in working with our Public Works Director and other staff, we have estimated that a prudent capital replacement number should be about $1 million. We, of course, have unfunded liability of just under, just pension liability of just under $16 million. So the question is, should we be paying some amount in excess of our required dollar amount per year? And for now, we have estimated that that should be $500,000. I understand the Finance Committee wants us to set aside more toward paying down our long-term liabilities, which actually is a great idea. So assuming the gap is $2.8 million, and remember we just talked about the previous slide of $3.4 million annual gap. So when you add that to this, so if you look at the third line there, the difference between our staffing needs and the new staffing cost is $2.8 million. Our current deficit, 1.5, and I say that because, mind you, that assumes and that includes the cost reduction that we have already undertaken of 8.4%. Our original deficit was 3.2. In other words, that's artificial. But be that as it may, our new base structural deficit then would be $4.4 million. If you add back, as I said earlier, the 3.4 for the CIP. And here's another one that we have really not talked a lot about, which is the potential loss of the vehicle license fee. We could be losing about $1 million if there's no changes in the existing legislation. Then our total deficit would be about $8.8 million. Again, the details we need to work out and arrive at a range that is acceptable to all parties and stakeholders, including the Finance Committee. But at this point, my thought is that our gap is somewhere between $6 million and $10 million, depends how you look at it. It could be less if you make different assumptions. The bottom line is it does not include one-time expenditures that we can always expect every year. Our request of the Finance Committee, therefore, is that they help us with our review of cost allocation plan, help us determine our annual or regular deficit, help us with our compensation study that we have just begun, and help us identify a short list of recommendations for potential revenue measures, if that's the direction of the council. I also want to point out that in the last couple of years, we have taken several actions to increase revenues. The council, of course, approved updated user fees and impact fees. We have sought additional grants, have been quite successful at it. We did put at the council's direction, put an item on the ballot for the November 2024, which did not pass. And we currently, as a result of the council action of declaring 2 properties, city-owned properties, as being surplus, they're on the market and undergoing a process to sale of those 2 properties. On the expenditure side, of course, we, in the current budget process, we engaged in about, or resulted in about 8.8% in reductions in expenditures. In addition, the city, as I mentioned earlier, is going through a process of sale of city properties. The property sale process was initiated in 2023. And I want to point this out because the question is always being asked, well, why did the city choose to put that particular parcel, Main Street versus Adams Street? And I want to mention that there was lots of discussion at that time. This is 2022-23. There was a thinking in the community that of the two properties, that is, if you only compared Adams Street or the Main Street property, there would be greater support or greater opposition to sell Adams Street versus the Main Street. I just also want to point out that the sale of city properties, regardless of which property it is, doesn't solve our ongoing current problem, because any sale of the revenues, the sale price would not be received until the 26-27 fiscal year at the earliest, and ongoing TOT revenue would not be received by the city until 29-30 or fiscal year 30, again at the earliest. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any initial questions for Mr. Comello at this point? All right, I'm sure we'll have a little bit more dialogue here. I will open it for public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on, we haven't even gotten into some of the details, but where we're going with this and what the expectations are from this meeting, but open public comment and we'll go from there. Ms. Wheaton.
Yes, Kelly Wheaton. I think this report is premature, and I have been told in some ways inaccurate. If I am correct, you just at the last city council meeting approved a compensation study to see whether we are compensating people fairly or we need to make adjustments there, and an efficiency study. I think the compensation study was around $42,000 and the efficiency study was for $100,000. So I have some issues with the assumptions the city manager put forward. But beyond that, we just saw the benefit of the Finance Committee and their work, and this report was not sent to them for their comments and feedback and enhancements. And I just think that if you're going to have a Finance Committee and a Water and Wastewater Committee, you need to take issues that are going to come before this council, send it to those committees for their feedback. They're not going to override the staff, or they're not going to tell you what to do, but they're going to give you feedback. And that needs to happen on a regular basis. And you also need to have some conduit for public engagement on these issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Gary Rose, and again, I'm speaking for myself and not as a member of the Finance Committee. I'm going to say kind of what Kelly said, but on a different note, I guess, in the fact that in order for this type of thing to be useful to you as a council, we do need the Finance Committee and staff to kind of come from a common position. Otherwise, it sort of pits one against the other in a way. It makes it difficult for, you hear one thing from the Finance Committee as a standalone, sort of, and then you hear something else from city staff, whether it be Mr. Comello or Mandy or whatever. It's a lot easier if we were, and it's not easy to do because of just getting everyone together and time schedules and all of that. But I think these types of reports, it is important that everyone at least look them over and we come with a united front, even if it's only presented by city staff. It doesn't have to be presented from the Finance Committee. But the Finance Committee is in a little bit different position. We don't have the advantage, the Finance Committee does not have the advantage of the same type of staff report, the same type of request to City Council to review this like this is being done. And so this carries more weight or gravitas than what the Finance Committee does in a way. So I think it's just a matter of working out the mechanics of these things so that the Finance Committee input is something that you guys can really depend on as part of having the staff having looked at it and the Finance Committee looking at staff reports. I hope that makes sense, to just try and mesh the two so that you don't have to sort between Finance Committee recommendations and staff recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Smithers, Vallejo Street, speaking on my own behalf. I won't be probably as graceful as Gary. With the amount of hours that I've put in on the Finance Committee, this is maddening to me. This is just unbelievable. I mean, and we've actually reported on some of this stuff, the Finance Committee did, and actually sent it to the City Council. And this is a regurgitation of information that we've already talked about, but nothing in here has changed from what we sent to City Council. So what Finance Committee has done hasn't even been included in any updates to where we are. And the headline here that ends up happening because of the media world that we're in now, the headline is, oh my God, the city is facing an $8.8 million annual deficit. That's the headline. And that's like about as far from the truth as it can possibly be. And it really would be great if we could be more involved up front. The $2 million capital replacement fund, we've asked for details so that we can actually come up with that number. And that's something that is on the agenda of the Finance Committee. The unfunded liability, we've suggested it, that's true. And, but this $3.4 million of capital improvement needs on an annual basis, we've already talked to that most of this stuff is aspirational. It's like a new city hall, the extension of Oak Street down to Grayson. There's all these things that are not going to happen unless there's some sort of funding source. So to put it in there and say there's like this, to build it up and say there's an $8.8 million, deficit. And then there is the issue of we've had discussions and, it's really important. So the class and comp study that supposedly we're going to be engaged in, but we haven't been engaged in yet, that's a big deal because what really the whole thing is about is what are the cities that are included in that class and comp study. If you want to go ahead and include Alameda and San Rafael and not, Yountville, Calistoga, Middletown, and the places that are close and proximate to us, then the class and comp study, of course, is going to give you some number that then, to get to median, and that's not what the data says. So this sort of thing is super, super frustrating. And I'm on the Finance Committee, and again, spent hundreds of hours, quite frankly, in the last 6 months. But even from the public's perspective, we're sending out bad messages, and we're just regurgitating a narrative that's been going around. And it really would be better if we kind of worked more collaboratively, and it would be great if we sat around the table, quite frankly, the City Council and the Finance Committee, at least from my perspective as a personal opinion, and we could really go through some of these things versus just putting out a report that says we have an $8.8 million structural deficit. Thank you.
Good evening, Scott Anderson, Olive Avenue. I've got some notes, but I'm also going to ad lib. It's no longer a secret that St. Helena is facing a financial crisis. But what's exciting is that this crisis is actually presenting the community with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Oliver Caldwell and I are promoting an initiative with 3 key elements. 1, save and expand Lyman Park. 2, create a town square. 3, secure a city's financial future. I'm speaking tonight because we're talking about financial future, and we believe that there's some alternatives that the council could be looking at. We also want to give the community something to look forward to instead of dreading. I don't think anybody's looking forward to the tax increases that are being proposed. To accomplish these goals, I think it's been mentioned here tonight, the council needs to work with the locals, have more faith in us, work together to try to make lemonade out of the lemons. In speaking with a friend of mine who was on the Finance Committee who prepared the report in 2020, I was surprised to learn that report did not include Adams Street or the Carnegie Building. And it's been brought to my attention that the Finance Committee at that time was told to ignore those 2 buildings, those 2 city assets, because there had been such an uproar by the community when it was put up for sale back in 2016. Confidentially, this individual on the Finance Committee said that the committee back then actually was recommending the sale of Adams Street to a luxury resort and also selling Carnegie Hall. So I think as the council moves forward, I think we need to really look at all of our options, including selling the Adams Street property. You're currently negotiating with the same individual who bid on both the City Hall property and Adams Street. It shouldn't be a secret. I know you're having closed session meetings with the developer, Richard Holland. But the reality is that we really need to, as a community, look at revisiting this and not being afraid of the pushback. I agree with the city manager that we shouldn't talk about it, that it's a sacred cow, that people are going to absolutely blow a gasket. I can tell you the reason they're not going to do that is because things are very different today than they were back then. Back then, we had a mayor who was telling us that we were financially flush, and that was not accurate. And so the community was like, why should we sell Adams Street if we don't need the money? Well, I think it's pretty clear we do need a solution, and I think it's worth considering. And so, again, I'm going to put forward an initiative to try to educate people, and I'm happy to help as well. As a real estate professional, I'm happy to do whatever I can to assist. But just know that Oliver and I are very keen on trying to help secure the city's financial future. And one of the ways of doing that is our research has determined that a luxury resort is 5 times as profitable as a luxury hotel. Calistoga is generating $12 million every year in their TOT, and a hotel at the City Hall site is going to cannibalize the TOT of the other hotels that we have currently in St. Helena. And I don't think we should be fooled into believing that it's going to do all of the things that they're promoting. So with my 5 seconds, I'd like you to support this idea of creating a town square the size of Healdsburg here in our own little community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I'm back from the Finance Committee. I'd like to speak about our structural deficit. When I looked at it, and Anil and I have spoken, there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't necessarily have to exist unless we want it to exist. It's what I consider sort of budget fluff. And so when I looked at it, I could easily take that down to about $1.5 million, that structural deficit. If we took out the things that are in there that we don't need to have, I go back to my mother who always said, don't spend money that you don't have. And so when we look at what we have, we could get this down to a much smaller amount. What I would suggest in relationship to developing some properties we own, one thing I know as a finance person, you never, we have our deficit is continuing deficit. It isn't a one-time deficit, and you don't sell property to fill the needs of a continuing deficit. In other words, if I get $3 million for a piece of property, but I have $1.5 million deficit every year, my $3 million lasts 2 years. We have to come up with a way of actually having continuing revenue to match our continuing expenses. And there are ways to do that. I won't talk to you about that now, but I think we need to consider that very seriously, that selling property does not help us. It actually does not fix our problems, and it decreases our assets and brings up the price of our bonds.
Thank you. All right. Let me, any other folks wanting to address your council on this issue? Doesn't look like it. I'll close the public comment and bring it back. Some interesting comments. Mr. Camillo, points well taken by many of our members. As I read your staff report, I think you're offering a number of off-ramps here. I don't, it seems like some of the statements maybe overstate maybe the intent of reintroducing this item again, and maybe I want to get your clarification, because in your staff report, I note you say it is anticipated over the next couple of months that the Finance Committee will do the following: review the cost allocation plan, determination of the the structural deficit, analysis of the compensation study, evaluation and recommendation of options for expenditure reductions, and revenue enhancement measures and strategies. So there's a fair amount of work that the Finance Committee will have to do, and we look forward to that work. I mean, I've already stated in one of the prior matters how important this work will be for us, and I think maybe that's one of the intents of getting this back on the radar. And then I think with respect to the structural deficit, I think we all agree that it really depends. I mean, there are a number of ways of handling that, because I think most folks don't really understand what a structural deficit is, but because it's so amorphous, it depends on what 10 people in a room will go, well, do we want that new bridge or not? Do we want that new library or not? Do we want better sidewalks than we have now? So everybody's going to have 10 people will sit in a room, and everybody's going to have a different idea of what that should include. And that's kind of where we are. And I think it's critically important that we all get together and figure out what it is if we're going to go out to our folks and ask for more money. And we're struggling with that. And I think it's open that we're all struggling with it. And I think we can recognize that. It's very frustrating to get consensus. The number we finally choose is probably not going to be the perfect number, but it's a number that we can all live with, that's reasonable. What are the reasonable expectations of the city? What is our capacity over the next 20, 30 years to do the things we want to do? So I think that's the intent of this report, but I may be wrong. I think it's more of an introduction of the item. But I want to make it very clear that we are not bypassing the Finance Committee in any way. As a matter of fact, I'm begging the Finance Committee to weigh in on these issues. And some people have resisted that, frankly. Some will, well, that's your responsibility, City Council. You take the heat for doing that. And so there's this, this interchange. The expertise out in the community is immense, well beyond mine. I know what I do, and I do legal work. That's my thing. And then in my legal practice, I hire experts all the time, many in the finance industry. And so I'm used to that. I rely on those opinions. That's what we have to do in our community. So I agree with to some degree that maybe we have the cart before the horse, Mr. Kamel, but I don't think that's the intent. I don't think we're stuck on this 8.8 as the number. It's more of a, hey, here it is. Let's talk about it and let's get a better number.
Yeah.
So I'm teeing it up for you, Mr. Kamel, because I want to be respectful of our committees and our process, and so at the same time we have to kind of tighten up what direction we give. Otherwise, it's just wide open. And our council, we're the policymakers, and we're like, okay, we got to give you some direction here, work on this, and there's that typical inherent give and take there. Oh, we want to work on this. Okay, so we have to kind of mesh, as someone said, and make it all fit, as Mr. Rose said, and we can do that if we all understand that it's a difficult challenge. Okay, Mr. Camelo, I have teed it up 5 times now for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did an excellent job. What Mr. Rose said, and in fact what Ms. Cossetti said, both were music to my ears. We certainly want to, desperately to use your word, need the help of the Finance Committee to move this forward. Yes, that was the purpose, is to just refocus on our finances. That is the most important thing, in my opinion, at this point for the city to work on, because it impacts a lot of different other aspects of our work, including the getting enough revenue to provide services, but also to take care of our built environment. A couple of clarifications. One is that the $3.4 million has lots of assumptions. As I remember in my beginning of my presentation, I emphasized the fact that there are a lot of assumptions. But one thing that was not an assumption is the direction we received from the previous council. Now, I understand. Elections happen, people change, and different direction is given. The previous council and a couple of people on the committee, on the subcommittee that worked with staff, were very emphatic that we need to list everything that we may need in the next 20 years. I'll repeat, everything we may need in the next 20 years that would be helpful to the city. So the next phase was an evaluation of each of those items, and I think we are there. I think it's appropriate that the Finance Committee and staff roll up our sleeves and figure out what are the things that are absolutely needed, those things that we need to remove. But until that happens, that's the direction we received, the last direction we received from council. That's why the number is there. As to the, I just want to also say that the role of the Finance Committee, we look forward to the collaboration. We have been cooperating. And in fact, this coming Monday, we plan to meet with the new chair and vice chair, along with Councilmember Barrick, who of course is a lot more informed about this than, and is really interested in this matter. And he's the official city council liaison to the committee. So we will be looking forward to working with him on that. But I also want to tee up two other things. One is, there's been a lot of conversation in the community about two aspects of the finances. One is there going to be a ballot measure next year or not? I don't know. But the reason I brought this up is because if there's an intent of doing that at some point within the next 6 months, not today, but in the next 6 months, we need to make that decision, because staff then has a lot of work to do to make sure that we don't miss any deadlines with regard to the county. And finally, as we are negotiating with the finalists for the development opportunity that was out on an RFP for the Main Street, I also know, as the gentleman pointed out, that Oliver Caldwell and others have been working very hard on a different different direction. And of course, I don't want to ignore that either. I understand that there's going to be a community meeting on that subject coming up soon. So the community will have an opportunity to learn more about it. But regardless, as far as staff is concerned, whether we sell Main Street or Adams Street and or Railroad, we do need money, we do need housing. And we need to figure out how to proceed. So that's what that was the intent. Hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Mayor.
What is your expectation, Mr. Camella, with respect to the council's discussion and direction on the various revenue options that are attached to the report? Do you expect a full-blown, the reason I said what I said about the Finance Committee, I sort of agree that, that they're there, but I don't know what you would look for other than a recommendation to have the committee look at the various options, kind of do some detailed work there, really with, in particular, targeting a finance mechanism, a revenue mechanism with a need, because you can put something up there and it may be limited to one area, like a fire services or library services, and that will not get to other issues, right?
That's
that are
exactly
included in this amorphous structural deficit. So that's the kind of work that I would expect our finance committee to really kind of focus in on that. What is the need? And my gut feeling now is it probably is going to be a few different items, and maybe the timing will be structured in a different way. It won't be just one panacea, but I don't know yet. I want to hear back on that. That's the recommendation I would give back to you and have the finance committee kind of look through that, as opposed to us going, well, I think I'll pick these three. I want a sales tax. I mean, I look at the sales tax and go, well, we should ask for 1%, not 0.5%, but that's me. And I would rather have other people sort through it and kind of come up with some reasonable recommendations back to the council. That's how I see it. How do you see it?
I think that the sentiment has been expressed is that staff needs to work with the finance committee and come to council with sort of a better baked product, so you can then evaluate and how to decide how you want to move forward. From my perspective, I think these four are things I'm hoping that the finance committee would want to help us work with. And I assume that if that's your desire as well, you may want to direct staff and the finance committee to do that. I think that to me is a critical path for the next few weeks and months.
Okay.
And again, don't forget, I was also talking about, I recognize that I want to make sure I say this. I'm not looking necessarily to say that we need to have a ballot measure. I think there are some that do believe that because the revenue from a hotel, one or more, may not come in the next few years, we need something else, and also it's never going to be 100%. I also want to point out that there was a public comment about asking.
Mr. Galbraith made a public comment. He said we're delusional.
Well, he said the plan.
If we put all our hope on hotels, because of past disappointments, and I understand that feeling.
I understand.
We've been disappointed a couple times now.
We have.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that when I said I used 4 years, I wasn't talking necessarily about any particular project. I was saying regardless of which project it is, if it's approved today, you're not going to get the money in 4 years, and I probably wasn't as articulate about it. I also want to say that the Farmstead Hotel, as people think, is not completely dead. I mean, it's still viable. It's still, he's gotten funding, and hopefully will be developed at some point in the future. I also want to say that the Castellucci proposal on the BFA site is going through our process, so that's a possibility as well. And of course, we have been working with a potential developer for the Main Street site. So I didn't mean to imply that any of these projects are not viable. They all could be, but they're going through their individual processes.
Comments from my colleagues on sort of this general discussion? Mr. Summers? I'm sorry, Mr. Summers?
No, go ahead.
Well, we're in a great moment in the history of our time because we're finally looking under the hood of what type of vehicle and machine St. Helena is. And we can't fix it until we know what's going on. And this is the moment where we're starting to figure out what's going on. And we're looking at cutting because of our deficit financially. However, there's another component that's being talked about that's, called revenue generation. Okay, and all these pieces that could add up in different ways. But, like any portfolio, you want to diversify. And sometimes it's a lot of little things that can add up to our sustainability. And sometimes it's a big thing like a hotel. But I believe that we are kind of just getting under the hood, getting integrated with Mandy and her amazing staff and our amazing constituents that are contributing all of their time and heart, because this is our town. This is ours, and we should be able to decide what we do with the money. And it's not about spending it on pipes all the time. Sometimes it is, but we want to have our finger on the lever. We want to understand what it is, and we're just getting to the space of navigation. We're not there of full integration, but I'm excited about the future of being able to see what the heck's going on and have some minds that can process it and bring it down to terminology that's understandable for me, our constituents, and everybody that lives here, because this is our place, and we're trying to make it a better place. And we can't do that until we get our hands on it and we understand it. And so I'm excited about where we're going, but we're not there yet, and that's obvious tonight. Thanks.
That's okay, I'll say something. Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, my interest would be in having a joint study session of the council and the finance committee. I don't know if that's possible, but to me, that's what I feel like would be helpful in being able to have a back and forth with all of us there, hearing the ideas coming live, actually.
I haven't forgotten about you, sorry.
I kind of actually want to stem a little bit off of what Councilmember Summers was saying. I think I love that there's going to be some community collaboration that Oliver is going to be doing in regards to, getting public involved with the options for our town. Because I do think it is important that everyone in town feels that their voice is being heard. This is an extremely important matter of what we might be doing, what property we might be selling, and what we do with that property. I think it is very important to have as many people in the public weigh in their opinions as possible. And in that sense, I love that we have a public session, but I also think maybe we should do a city special study session as well, and allow the public to weigh in during that session potentially. I don't know, that could be an idea.
All right. What are you looking for, Mr. Comello, that you haven't received yet?
Well, I just want clarity. I think we can certainly schedule study sessions both on sort of, I would say, real estate options or whatever, and then also on the finances over the next few months. And then I just want to make sure that that's what I heard. There seems to be consensus. And then also, assuming this is what's on the screen is acceptable, staff will work with council, with finance committee to get some more information on these topics. And of course, then we'll have a study session at some point in the future, if that's what you're looking for.
What do you mean by regular deficit in number 2 there?
Well, I chose the word regular because some people didn't like the word structural. So I was trying to use different words to, because people.
The ongoing gap.
Yeah, thank you.
I was wondering what if that's different from structured. That's fine.
Correct.
Okay, as long as there's some understanding. You know, obviously we're the ones now opining on this, and we haven't gotten the feedback whether this is acceptable. Well, and maybe that should come up in the next meeting. Like, no, we don't want to take that on, or hopefully the finance committee will take this on. But there's a lot of information we're waiting for still. So the point that was made that the comp study is still being made. Maybe it is that is going to be determinative of some of the direction we go.
Right.
So as in life, new information is coming in. And sometimes the timing is a little bit off. So hotel development and ballot measures and what goes first. And then the notion of, well, we have our opinions, the finance committee has its opinions, but ultimately it's our citizens that are going to be the ones making the decisions. We're the conduit for that, the vehicle for that. And so we're going to have to test that as we do. If there was going to be a ballot measure, we're going to have to start thinking about that. So what we think may not be what the community is thinking right now in terms of particular ballot measures or even hotel development. Maybe that's something that we have to, and I hate to put one against another. I think it's going to be a bundle. Frankly, that's what I'm looking at right now of different items, as Mr. Summers made the point on. What do you think?
My reaction is just hearing Vice Mayor Deasy and Councilmember Spadaforo's requests. Given that where we are with negotiations on the Main Street property, if there is a desire to receive input from the community, it makes sense to prioritize that community's study session, excuse me. So we can do that probably in September. And I think that there is some time that the Finance Committee and staff will need to gather data, to work together. Okay. The compensation study needs to move along. So I'm thinking that perhaps later this year, we can have a finance-focused joint meeting or a study session of some kind. I'll work with the chair of the Finance Committee and work that out. But in the meantime, if I'm hearing correctly, I will, as early as September, organize, because we're running out of time on the real estate decision-making, so we need to move on that.
Yeah, and that is consistent with what I've stated in the press and in public sessions, that we need to hear more from the community. We're hearing from a couple of folks who are passionate about it. I'd like to see how the community is thinking about these issues. So I think that sounds reasonable to me. Anything else? Any other kinds of ideas, Mr. Carmelo? I think we've given enough direction. I think you were looking for direction there. I was hesitating to get right into the nitty-gritty of the various list of revenue options at this moment, but I think we will have to have an interchange with our finance committee because I just look at it right now and go, oh, I'm not seeing issues that other people will see. I have a history of apparently doing that. So we have to get experts to go, okay, Paul, this is what you're missing. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me. And so that's why we have a finance committee, and I think we need to continue to use their services. All right. No more, nothing else on that item? Okay, let's move on then. All right. So we're on to, as I understand it, we're on, looking at it, I think that's that issue. We're on to new business. We have a minor issue here on new business. It's the California League of Cities Annual Conference, and we have to designate some voting members or member. Mr. Carmelo, I'll let you introduce the item.
Yeah, so on the last day of the conference, there's usually the legislative part of the conference. There are items that the delegates for each city needs to vote on. For this particular conference, the attendees are Councilmember Spadaforo, Councilmember Summers, and Councilmember Barrick. I'll also be going. So typically, a council member is designated as the official voting delegate for the city. So,
it's kind of interesting. I noticed when we choose these delegates, it's important to be in the room, otherwise you could get chosen. I'm thinking Mr. Barrick would be the perfect person for the job. I don't know, I'm just saying.
I second that.
And then we should have an alternate, maybe Mr. Camello, you would be the alternate? Or somebody else? Does anybody else want to be the alternate? You're not going? You're going?
I'm going.
Okay.
I'm good.
How about Mr. Camello? You want to, I mean, in the past, we've had our, a staff member be the delegate. Do you mind? You're going to go, so how about, do we have consensus around Mr. Barrick and then Mr. Camello as the, I knew that everybody would be delighted in that. All right, do you have direction there, or do we need any? We don't, okay. All right. Okay. On to item 14. Sorry, I'm moving away from my mic more and more as I'm getting tired. City council reports. Anything from any of my colleagues on their activities outside of city council on these various organizational bodies through the county and elsewhere? Any reports to give today? Seeing none. It looks like it's time for adjournment. Madam Clerk, have we covered it all? I haven't missed any items? All right. Well, as I say often, find joy. There is nothing better than focusing on joy. Get up in the morning and celebrate what we have in the Napa Valley and our families and the things we do and all the things we do. We're just so blessed to be here. I'm very grateful for it. And even though sometimes it's hard, democracy is hard, I'm grateful that we still have it.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned.